Due to Dr. Besigye's court-martial in Uganda, I felt it good that we should discuss, or we should compare and contrast the court-martials in Kenya and in Uganda. My research shows that court-martials in Uganda are a normal day of court hearing. It is just as normal as somebody in Kenya who knows about Kibera and Makadara. I believe Kibera and Makadara are two courts that are daily active. So from what I've managed to gather, when it comes to court-martials in Uganda, it is very normal. Regularly happens. In Kenya, it is possible for you to be employed in the Kenya Defense Forces, stay there for decades and retire before anybody you know has been court-martialed. Yes, Kenya's court-martial are covert and Uganda court-martials are overt. But even with the two extremes, still, I believe the number of court-martials in Uganda are too many as compared to Kenya. I would not be wrong if I said that for every one Kenyan court-martial, Uganda has had 50 or 100 court-martials. I have tried to remember, I said Kenyan court-martial is generally covert. But I've tried to look at the Kenyan court-martials and found that I would want to believe, and I have convinced myself, that the Kenyan KDF are by far very disciplined as compared to UPDF. UPDF for you is Uganda People's Defense Forces. If you look at the Kenyan court-martial cases I've come across, apart from the case of August 1982, mostly are just within the military. But if you look at most of the court-martials in Uganda, you'll find that it is very easy for a member of the UPDF, Uganda People's Defense Forces, to just take a gun, go to a marketplace and shoot people. Many of the cases I've come across are simply as that. There is a case in the UPDF of somebody, a Ugandan private. Now, if you don't know what a private is a constable in the army. Of a Ugandan constable who had money, and his girlfriend took the money, of course, and he was 38 years old. He went, took a gun from a fellow soldier, came and shot this lady in the legs. I want to verify that such irresponsibility, if I don't know about any other armed forces, but if I have to compare from the little that I know, if I have to compare UPDF and KDF, I believe that KDF is more disciplined. Not only is KDF more disciplined, but also, when did you last hear that a drunk KDF went to a village and started beating people around. Yes, they do happen. As a former police officer, as a former detective, I've come across very many. But the person on the street, how many people have you come across such a thing? So comparing the two, I'm not saying that Kenya Defense Force is the most disciplined or anything, or there is no chance for them to improve, but I would say I would really want to pass it out that compared to UPDF, Kenya Defense Forces is very disciplined. I have looked at Kizza Besigye's case. He has been taken to a general court martial. Were it not for Kizza Besigye, I would not have known anything called general court martial. But I've tried to, because I can't leave this place, Isiolo, go the way to Kampala or Uganda. And if you are a foreigner and you start asking some questions, that is inviting a bullet to your forehead. So in Uganda, they have something that is called general court martial. In Kenya, of course, over 90% of the court martials we have ever had were related to Sunday, August 1st, 1982. And they were just being called court martial. So I found Uganda, when Kizza Besigye is being tried, they call it general court martial. Another thing I found is that in Nigeria, they also have something that is called general court martial. In the case that I came to learn of in Nigeria, was very sad. A major general was charged with stealing 400 million nairas. And the investigation arm of the military police found some of the money from him. And he had, I think, 4 charges, of which he was convicted of 2. And one conviction was immediate dismissal. And the second one was reduction in rank from Major General to Brigadier General and be reduced. He was reduced to Brigadier General and 2 years, removed 2 years service seniority. For people who have no background in Afandism like me, I'll try to explain that. One, he was a Major General, so they reduced him to Brigadier General, meaning that he will no longer be referred to as Major General. And let us say that he was made a Brigadier General in 2015. So if they reduce 2 years seniority, his records will be made. Imagine before he went to court, he was a Major General. But he has been reduced back to Brigadier General. And they say that he was not made a Brigadier General in 2015, but he was made a Brigadier General in 2017. So they have taken out the 2 years. Before continuing, anybody with a knowledge of Kenyan military and the British military, there is one rank in the Ugandan army and in the Nigerian army that is not in the Kenyan army. In the Kenyan army, you come from Brigadier, you go to Major General. But in Uganda army and in Nigerian army, you move from Brigadier, you go to Brigadier General. Then Brigadier General, you go to Major General. So there is one rank in between. I've noticed with the Uganda Army that it is possible for two colonels or colonels, one goes to brigadier and another one is promoted to brigadier general on the same day. That is in Uganda. The other thing I can say is that both Uganda, UPDF and KDF have instances where they have shown contempt to the civilian courts. Remember, in all over the world, apart from countries which has been overthrown by the military, just like South Korea was about to be overthrown, when a government is overthrown by the military suspends the constitution. But where the constitution works is that the military courts are inferior to the civilian courts. Take an example of the Kenyan police. Imambo ya kuwa police man. The Kenyan case. If you are convicted by the court martial, you are allowed to appeal to the High Court. You are allowed to appeal to the High Court. And again, court martial is treated as a tribunal. Now, a tribunal, just like rent tribunal, just like land tribunal, these are or do they call it quasi-judicial system. And again, whatever outcomes come, is that you can still appeal to the High Court, and if you are not happy with the High Court, you go to Court of Appeal. That is the system. I am not able to know why Colonel retired Kizza Besigye case has been referred to general court martial. But the research that I have done, I conclude that maybe general court martial could be something like we say Supreme Court. So it means that it is the highest court martial. Because in the Ugandan court martial, in Kenya, court martial is only on one level. But in Uganda, they have court martials at the battalion, headed by a lieutenant colonel, at the division, headed by a colonel. But when it goes to Makindie committee ya huko, Kenyans, committee ya huko, if it goes to Makindie, then I think that is when it is now called general court martial. Uganda is mostly relying on 1995 constitution. If you come to Kenya, or if you go to Kenya, Kenya relies on the 2010 constitution. It is not upon me to say which one is better than the other. Of course, I know the Kenyan constitution from A to Z, but Ugandan constitution, I don't think I can even reach an E from A. So even if I knew them both, I do not know which is superior to the other. In a court martial, this is how the panel is. There is usually the chair of the court martial. I told you, a court martial is like a tribunal, land tribunal, rent tribunal. So there is a chairman, or the chair lady, or just call it a chair. And then there is a panel of about 4 to 6. 4 plus the chairman, that is the odd number, isn't it? 6 plus the chairman, 7, which is an odd number. This is for obvious reason that should they not agree, then it is simple. That is why in many judiciaries, we usually have an odd number in such a situation, so that if there is a split, you cannot have 3.5 people or 2.5 people. In a court martial, if I have to rely on the few countries that I've supervised, that I've done research on, is that the chair is the person to determine the going on. But he or she, allow me to use the word he, but he is allowed to be led by somebody called judge advocate. Judge advocate. Now, in the panel, in a court martial panel, it is not mandatory for the chair or any member of the whatever to have a legal or even a paralegal training. It is not a must. That is why they have somebody called judge advocate. Now, I first heard of judge advocate just after I had completed my Form 6 and before I joined the police. So I was a bit confused because I was asking myself that an advocate is below a magistrate and a judge is above the magistrate. But that is a legal military terminology of somebody who is trained in law and who has to assist the tribunal or the panel in determining what they will determine. If, to some extent, you can compare this person to the American judges. You see, in the American judges, you are taken before the jury. Taken before the jury, so the judge just informs the jury ABCD. But that is the nearest description you can give to a court-martial panel. It is not the same because in all court-martials, the chair and the panel would only ask for the opinion of the judge advocate. If they perform well and whatever and they don't seek for advice, or if the judge advocate does not offer advice, it is possible for you to continue with the case till it is terminating without, you terminate it without even anybody hearing the voice of a judge advocate. In the case of 1982 and subsequent cases, remember I told you that in the Kenyan constitution, in the Kenyan court martials, most of the cases are behind curtains. And in Uganda, they even, at the divisional level or even battalion level, they usually go to a nearest primary school where somebody, they do the court martial when the whole village is there. And what do they do in Uganda? Once the soldier has been found guilty, he's placed in handcuffs and they move less than 5 kilometers away and terminate his life. If they are found that he... Imagine there is one which I was following. It was at 3 p.m. and the colonel, or is it colonel? And the colonel was saying that, he gave that person 14 days to appeal. So I want to correct myself because you cannot be given 14 days to appeal and then be shot there immediately. After the case was terminated, he was taken. When I saw the video, I thought he was going to be shot, but I've just remembered that he was given 14 days to appeal. Just, is that a kangaroo court? No, it is not a kangaroo court. A kangaroo court is far more better than that. So, apana haribia kangaroo court its good name. So there is the chair and whatever, then there is judge advocate. In the Kenyan system, judge advocates are magistrates. Because I remember in 1982, my neck top reminds me of the then magistrate who was a senior resident magistrate who was called Omondi Tunya, and others were judge magistrates in such a case. What I noticed then after school, even before being recruited into the police, is that judge advocate in the Kenyan system was somebody who was principal legal advisor to the chairman of the panel and even the panel itself. But when I saw the Kizza Besigye's case, I saw that there was, first of all, there were two lawyers who were playing good cop, bad cop. There is a thin fellow who was making a lot of noise, and then there is the other slightly not thin who was talking reasonably, and the court would listen to him. But then there was the younger person who was very emotional and whatever, who kept on saying that he had been to a law school for 5 years. I saw the judge advocate in Uganda. In Uganda, all the cases that I've researched on, judge advocates are not magistrate or judges from the Ugandan judiciary. No. In the Uganda, I said in Kenyan system, they take the magistrates, and I gave an example of Omondi Tunya. But in Uganda, judge advocate is a member of the legal department of UPDF. That is something I noticed. Another thing I noticed, like in the case of Kizza Besigye, the judge advocate was of the same rank with the chair of the panel. The chair of the panel was Brigadier General Freeman Mugabe. So it shows that these are young people, because if he's called Mugabe and Mugabe became the president in 1979, then it means that somebody was born around 1980 or 1975. So that is, the chairman was Mugabe, and then there was somebody of the same rank with him. Another thing I noticed is that when the chairman, in a Kenyan whatever, judicial, be it military or even civilian, judicial, high court and court of appeal and whatever, the judges or the panel usually come together. If it is more than one, if you're appearing before a 3-judge bench, if you're appearing before 7, 5, or even 1. Okay, let us talk of 3, 5, 7. They usually come together. But I saw in the Ugandan General Court Martial, when the chairman came, his panelists had already were there. So when he came, they all rose up. And I noticed everybody in the courtroom rose up except the judge advocate. But then, for somebody with a keen eye, you'll notice that the judge advocate in this particular case is of the same rank with the chair. So I don't know whether that is applicable in Uganda. But in Kenya, there is somebody who even asked me about in Kenya having an OCPD and a DCIO of the same rank. They were saying, why can't we have a... I said, in Kenyan system, Kenya National Police Service and KDF, there is no time when two people of the same rank are of the same rank. No. I can be of your rank. You can, we can, the two of you can be of the same rank. but one of you is in charge. So when you are both brigadiers and you are the one in charge, the other brigadier has to salute you. And when you enter into the room, he has to stand up for you. But I saw in Kizza Besigye's case, this judge advocate appeared to be so eager to show that he was of the same rank with the chair, and in as much as everybody was, I said there was a young lawyer who was very mbele, but he was being handled with civility. There was a lawyer who was saying that he has been to the university studying law for 5 years, and he said every section, every law is in the book that he was carrying and in his head. He was trying to imply that the prosecutor is not a lawyer. Well, when I was in the police force, Kenya police force, inspectors of police and above were allowed to prosecute cases. Anyway, that is a story for another day. So I don't know whether the military in Uganda allows people, military police, to prosecute or something. But when he said that, the judge advocate intervened, and in a very annoyed manner. This is the problem with being in a panel where the prosecutor, the panel, and the judge advocate seem to be on one side. Unless there is other pressures, it is like Waswahili wanasema nini? We have cases where they say that you cannot take your dog to a judge who is a fox and accuse him. You are an ape. Human beings are apes. You are an ape. You take a dog, your dog, to a fox. I hope you get me there. That is what I wanted also to talk about lawyers. Lawyers. In Kizza Besigye's case, I saw lawyers were there, and lawyers have, maybe they have copied the Kenyan system, where you have a case and they come to court with very many lawyers. In Kizza Besigye's case, there were 36 lawyers. I think if you have enough points, you don't need so many lawyers. Some lawyers can use such an opportunity, although mostly they usually take those very known. You can see the Kenyan case, Njiru. Is he called Njiru? Kale kamutu kafupi na miwani. He's always in cases which are leaning to that. So in Kampala, maybe we have several lawyers of that type. But then I will also want, I want also to comment that in the case of Wetangula had just left university, and he was so new and he was so fresh that he didn't know. His friend Muturi, former speaker, now minister, had been taken up as a magistrate, but Wetangula went into private practice and he was not known. But during Moi's time, and I think Kampala is facing what we used to face during. If you want to know what Kenya used to face during Moi's time, just cross over to Kampala. That is how Uganda is at present. Now, you'll find that we have the number of kina Njiru. Is it called Njiru? This Kirinyaga short fellow na miwani kubwa. We have such lawyers in Kampala, hawezi kosekana. But then again, this is an opportunity when new lawyers can now start their teeth. Wetangula was not known, so he offered himself to defend the 82, and that is how he started being known up to the level he is today. Why do lawyers don't like defending people in court martial? One thing, in many court martials world over, you are guilty until proven guilty. There are 3 occasions here. In a normal court, you are innocent until proven guilty, isn't it? In some military courts, or a dictatorship court, you are guilty until proven innocent. But in majority, especially of military dictatorship, a court martial is you are guilty until you are proven guilty. I noticed that in the time of Kizza Besigye, there was presence of Uganda police. They were escorting Uganda prison and military police. In Kenya and in other jurisdictions, Kenya police and Kenya prison have nothing to do with the court martials. It is only after somebody has been convicted that is now being taken to committee that Kenya prison, now Kenya police will not have any part to play or anything. That is when the Kenya prison will take you to committee. You can even be appealing the court martial, but you'll be appealing the court martial, but from committee under the prisons. I have a feeling that Kizza Besigye's case has been decided by the Chief of Defense Forces and the Commander-in-Chief of the Uganda People's Defense Forces, both of whom, one is the father to the other. Just a magic will do that. I am shocked that the co-accused of Kizza Besigye is they call it Lodi Mayor. With my little knowledge, I would conclude that he's the Kampala mayor. Now, taking a councillor to a court martial. Somebody wake me up from this. I believe I'm dreaming. I don't think he has ever been a military person. 2, Colonel Dr. Besigye, in military affairs all over, once they have cleared with you, the only thing you still have with them is the name, Colonel retired. This person should have been charged before a civilian court. But then, Uganda are still where we were in the 80s and 90s. I think that is where they are. I don't think that the both of them will get justice. But at the end of the day, Mother Wangare Karua has gotten a regional feel. If there's going to be any other case in a place, let's say like Dar es Salaam, you can see how she is going. And maybe in the future, she could be the Secretary General of East Africa Community with such an exposure. Ladies and gentlemen viewers, that is the end of my today's story about court martial, comparing and contrasting the Ugandan and the Kenyan. Thank you.